Hey, what's up guys? So it's been about 8 months since I did one of these, so we're back to rating your unpopular opinions. I made a community post asking people to send me in theirs, to which I have gone through, collected them all, and here we are. If you want to be featured on the next installment or the next installment of any series that I have that involves the community, drop your unpopular movie opinions in the comments or subscribe to find my next community post. Alternatively, join our Discord in the pinned comment where you can find me regularly interacting with all of you. It's just a fun film community. It barely has anything to do with this channel, and you're all welcome to come and talk film, TV, and whatever else you'd like. Okay, so first up on the chopping block we have Fede, who has 3 opinions up for scoring. First is Red Rooms is the best movie of the decade so far, and I disagree. But I do think it's top 10. It's a very great movie. I have a video on it that I'm very proud of, and it truly is a generational film, but best of the decade, maybe not. But I also don't disagree enough to argue it really, and I respect anyone who puts it at the top, so I'll give this a decent 7 out of 10. Their next opinion is that Park Chan-wook is overrated and only has 2 great films, being Old Boy and Decision to Leave, and though I love anyone who loves Decision to Leave, this opinion is insane because no! Park Chan-wook is one of the greatest living filmmakers, and Old Boy isn't even in his top 3 movies, and that's a conversation for another day. That's my unpopular opinion, but this is stinky. 3 out of 10. Put some respect on the boy's name. And their third and final opinion is Tarantino and Nolan are the Kanye and Kendrick of film, in that they're great at their craft, but if someone had either as their favorite director or artist, you'd wonder how knowledgeable they are about film/music. And I don't know, I think Kanye and Kendrick are fine picks as favorites, as are Tarantino and Nolan. None of them are mine. I mean, Tarantino and Nolan wouldn't even reach my top 25, I don't think. None of them hit me in a way that a lot of other filmmakers do, but they are for sure popular picks, and these guys are popular for a reason. And I guess I don't know, I can't really explain why I don't agree, so I'm just gonna give it 5 out of 10 and hope that satisfies you. Egg Boy came in to give us one opinion, and that is that Kingdom of the Crystal Skull isn't that bad until the last third, and I'll go even further to say that it isn't bad, period. I actually quite like Crystal Skull. I watched the series for the first time last year, or maybe the year before, I can't quite remember, but I couldn't believe this is the one that people hated so strongly for all those years. It's such a fun and goofy movie. It's very competently made. It has really good performances. Yeah, the CGI kind of stinks, and yeah, it's a little bit unrealistic, but all the Indiana Jones movies are unrealistic. I think it's a step down from the others, but as a Spielberg action adventure, it's pretty good. So 8 out of 10. It would be higher if you didn't shit on the third act. That is good. You're a coward. Then that one Oompa Loompa comes in to give this opinion, and it's a long one, so I won't read it all, but the general idea is that boring movies are bad, and they do make sure to say that they like a lot of complex and slow movies, but the problem I have here is that boring is entirely subjective. So though I can agree that boring movies are bad, what I consider boring and what you consider boring and what others consider boring is all different. So it's hard to really put a specific pin on that. So overall I gotta give this a 4 out of 10, I think, just because it's just too loose of an opinion. Next up we have Enrique with 2 opinions. The first of which is that Goodfellas is pretty good but nothing special. And yeah, I agree. I've been on record saying as such. I think this is a good movie, but I just don't think it's as great as people say it is. Again, that's just my opinion, but you can look at this top 10. I will get to a ranking eventually, but this is the ranking as current, and like The Departed, I don't hate that people love it. I can see why. I just don't really feel the same about it, so 8 out of 10. Their second opinion is that Michael Bay's The Rock is one of the best action movies ever made, and though this is a very, very, very bold statement, I respect it. Now, when saying one of the best, I always put those things in like a radius of somewhere, maybe like the top 25. So do I think The Rock is a top 25 action movie? Probably not, but I do think it is a massively underrated movie, and I think Michael Bay has been very long underrated as a director, so I'll gladly give this opinion a 7 out of 10 despite me not really agreeing. Now we have a series regular in Vlogger23 who said that A Real Pain is by far the best movie released last year, and I disagree. It lands quite high on my list, but I do have several movies above it, but it's also a movie like Red Rooms where I won't really argue if you put it at the top. It's an excellent movie and it deserves all the award buzz it's getting, and I think you're a kind of cool person for having it so high, so a quality 8 out of 10 for you. Nice to Meet You has 2 for us, the first being Casino is better than Goodfellas, and if we refer back to my list, I agree, not much more to say on it. I don't want to dog on Goodfellas anymore. I do think Casino is just a lot better, so 8 out of 10. And their second opinion is that Takeout is Sean Baker's best, and it might be recency bias here, but I do think Anora is his best work to date, or maybe I'm just horny, but I don't hate Takeout being his best, so 6 out of 10. Then we have G Chamberlain again on this series to say, I think fandoms can genuinely hinder a movie's experience, such as The Greatest Showman fans acting like it's the second coming of Christ. And like, yeah, I think fan bases can be a huge hindrance on art and properties, movies, music, whatever. There are countless examples of this, but I also think people who let the fan base of a thing ruin their experience of the thing are also at fault. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend the fan bases of certain movies and music and such haven't put me off getting into something for so long, so 6 out of 10. Then we have JA Productions, who came back to the series to tell us that he doesn't care much for Brokeback Mountain, and that's because he's homophobic. 2 out of 10. Big Man Frankie nah, I'm joking. He says there are better gay stories out there, and while I agree there are much better movies representing that community out there, this movie is still a staple and has some of the most beautiful direction and performances I've ever seen. It should have beat Crash for Best Picture that year, so yeah, I can't say I disagree because you didn't necessarily say it's bad, but I'm gonna give you a 4 out of 10. Big Man Frankie has a couple opinions, the first being that Trap has to be the most underrated movie he's ever seen, and it isn't even close, and you are right, you don't need to elaborate. I do know, I agree 1000%. You get the crown this episode for the best opinion expressed today. 57% on Rotten Tomatoes, 5.8 on IMDb, and 2.7 on Letterboxd. It's insane. Spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen my top 50 of 2024 list, but Trap was my number 1. It's one of my favorite movies ever. I have seen it 4 times already. Trap haters will not see the kingdom of heaven. 10 out of 10 opinion. His second opinion is that Drive is one of the most overrated movies he's ever seen, and reading your explanation, I see where you're coming from, but I disagree heavily that the protagonist is soulless. Like, sure, he's mostly silent, he barely shows his cards, but I think Gosling puts across a lot of quiet emotion that takes that movie as far as it's gotten. But I also do think it's slightly overrated, so I'll give you a 5 out of 10. And his third and final opinion is that The Hateful Eight is Tarantino's best work, and you're right in that it has one of Walton Goggins' best performances. It's honestly probably his best. The movie has beautiful shots, it has everything, but I think it's just less accessible than Tarantino's other works, hence why it usually isn't rated as high as his other work, but for me, I like it enough. I just do put a whole lot more of his movies above it, but me and Tarantino have a really weird relationship. For his best work, I'd probably call it Reservoir Dogs, Jackie Brown, or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, maybe even Death Proof, honestly. But I understand where you're coming from. It's such a specific vibe that I imagine if you like it, you love it. So 6 out of 10. Then we have Something 29292, who has 4 big old unpopular opinions getting greedy. The first of which being that M. Night Shyamalan is an amazing filmmaker. Though he has some misses, he has more bangers, and you're right, he is one of the most interesting filmmakers of all time. He's my favorite, so you get some cookies and a second place crown. 10 out of 10. Their second opinion is that police movies are the best subgenre, especially detective stories, and I disagree, but I can't deny that detective stories have a grip on me and most others in a way a lot of subgenres don't. I respect this opinion. I'm not sure if it's particularly unpopular, but who cares? 6 out of 10. Their third opinion is a big paragraph on World War II movies, which is basically saying they're overall meh. And honestly, I agree. I'm not the biggest fan of World War II, and World World War II era aesthetics. Though I think you're quite reductive on the thematic qualities of many World War II movies, they're also not massively my thing, so 7 out of 10, who cares? And their fourth and final opinion is that Close Encounters is the far superior Steven Spielberg alien movie. E.T. doesn't even come close. And in my opinion, they're such different movies, it's difficult to compare. I prefer Close Encounters, sure, but E.T. is going for a wildly different thing, and for what it's going for, I think it delivers even if it isn't for me. So overall, I'll drop this opinion a 5 out of 10. You did okay. And finally, for our final opinion, we have Mickey T, who says that Denis Villeneuve's work is slightly overrated. I'll leave his whole explanation up for you to read, but the general gist is that there's a hollowness to his scripts that everyone overlooks because of his visual prowess, and that I completely understand. Especially in the Dune movies, like you said, it's most prominent in the sequel, but when looking at Prisoners, Sicario, Arrival, and Blade Runner 2049, I can't completely agree with you because the scripts are so thematically rich and emotionally intelligent. But overall, I do think his works are slightly overrated. I've seemed to like every film of his slightly less than the average, so I can't completely disagree, so I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. And that's it. That's all the opinions we have for today. Thank you to everyone who submitted. It's not easy to put your unpopular opinions out there on a public platform, and like I said at the top, leave yours in the comments, wait for the next post, or come join our Discord. But until then, whether it's one you have an unpopular opinion about or not, as always, keep watching movies.